A couple of weeks ago, we did a reaction video discussing hate towards Asians and the increase of hate crimes towards Asians over the last decade. Now, I didn't really believe in it initially based off my anecdotal experience. So what we're going to do today, we have an all Asian panel here. They're going to discuss their experiences with Asian hate, and let's have a discussion. Let's go.
For me, I don't think race should be an issue in anything. When we want to make a decision, we should not put race as a factor. Living in New York City, we're the melting pot of the world, so I haven't actually experienced any of these biases. And if we keep continuing to live on, remembering how history was, we're never going to move further. So I identify myself as American, and in this country, it's the only country where a homeless person can be a millionaire the next day. So based on capitalism, we all have an opportunity, and we should not use race as a factor in either getting ahead or depriving ourselves of opportunities.
I have a question directly related to the fact that you live in New York, right?
Yeah.
And you're an Asian woman. There have been significant high crimes towards Asian women that were all over the news. Did that affect you? And what were your thoughts on that?
The government is telling us that it's Asian hate, but that's not the real issue. The real issue is actually that these people were mentally ill and they were let out.
Or both can be the issue, right?
Yeah,
it can simultaneously exist as issues.
You can't say that it's Asian hate and use that as propaganda
Propaganda?
I feel like also to just say that these people are mentally ill is a kind of an ableist argument too, because there's plenty of people who are mentally ill who are not going out and killing Asian people on the street.
All these attacks that you're seeing the videos of in San Francisco, New York City, newsflash, they're not being prosecuted as hate crimes. So the more correct way to look at it is what is the primary perpetrator of violence against Asians overall, right? Because if we talk about these videos, we have to count them in the statistics, and we're not doing that. And when we do that, we find, well, I'll tell you this, the plurality top perpetrator of violence against Asians, number one, is not happening in rural America, and number two, is not being done by white people.
So is it black people that are doing it? Is it the black and brown people that are doing it?
No, that's exactly
just inherently violent.
I didn't say that. All I said was,
around it. Just say it.
And if it's not white people or Asian people, who is it?
All I said, I didn't say anything about, inherently violent. All I said is that if it's
now you did.
If it's
no one accused you of that, and now you did.
If it's a white...
So, your bias is slipping out there.
It's clear you want to say it. You should just say it.
Can anyone let me talk here?
When it comes to Asian hate, the perpetrator is not a white supremacist in New York.
Correct. That's all I'm saying.
So that's the
all
problem.
that I'm saying.
We don't want to blame one race for violence when that's actually not true.
Is it white people? Is it white people?
It is white people.
Are these attacks happening
It is white
in
people.
rural...
I literally looked up statistics.
You do not have to be white to perpetuate white supremacy. No one's saying it's not hard to govern a heterogeneous society, but it is possible to do a lot better than the way that we're fucking doing it right now. It's we've banked on this myth of white adjacency more than this model minority myth of instead of aligning ourselves with the black community who've been fighting for racial justice and liberation, right, and acknowledging our own privilege and putting our bodies on the line to fight for these movements. Instead, we banked on white adjacency, and here we are still being pushed.
First of all, what exactly is white adjacency? Is it working hard, having families?
I don't
understand what the issue is. But then number two, wait, let me finish my point. I think it is.
I think he was referring to more so when blacks were, protesting against further civil rights and going through all the struggles we went through. I think he's saying they should have showed up then. They should have joined the marches then. They should have been involved then. And because they weren't there. Well, I think some folks were obviously there, right? But the majority didn't come together and didn't realize, hey, yeah, we're fighting for black civil rights, but we're also fighting at the same time for all of our civil rights. You know what I mean? So I think that's what he meant right there. Let's keep it going.
I don't understand what the issue is. But then number two, wait, let me finish my point. I think it is gaslighting when, again, the majority of violent attacks against Asians are not being perpetrated by white people to blame white supremacy.
White supremacy as a construct is this idea that the norm of American is whiteness.
Yes.
That whiteness is the default.
Standard.
That whiteness is the standard that we all ought to aspire to. And we deviate from that.
It's not just talking about KKK.
Yeah.
It's not talking about lynchings. It's about a mentality that we have absorbed.
I'm gonna interrupt for a second. Yuling, what's going through your head right now?
Model minority myth, if I'm not wrong, I actually think that Asian Americans did create that first and foremost, to push the notion that we are dangerous away. First to say that, like, no, we belong here because I promise you we will not cause harm to you. And that has trickled down now into becoming almost a curse. Historically was used first to be like, we're not dangerous, we're American, we're American. But later on, it has moved into this sort of weaponized term / almost like idea concept where we get to say, like, oh, because we are model minority, like, we're not, like, dangerous and we're not this. And I think about this a lot with class. Like, a lot of Asian women who are sex workers. Who are we actually taking into account when we think about model minority? And I think that that term really applies to a very specific amount, or that idea of what that looks like is very specific. Because when I think of the Asian Americans that I know, I don't think that they're worried about whether or not they look like model minority. I think they're just trying to survive.
Vish, I see you percolating over there. What's going through your brain?
I don't understand why everybody's so hurt about, like, being described as a model minority. For me, it's like, well, I want to be the best. I want to be the smartest. I want to be the toughest. The model minority thing, I've never thought about it because I'm too focused on trying.
Do 2 W-2s make a W-4?
Are you kidding?
I'm trying to be a model American.
When I say the word stop Asian hate, what does it mean to you?
Scam.
I agree.
Why?
I see it as the same way as the BLM organization. It's just a cudgel meant to divide Americans on racialized language and racialized ideas that are not really congruent with reality. The Stop Asian Hate movement, you know, makes a big fuss about white supremacy. So I find that to be a scam in a similar way that BLM makes a boogeyman out of cops and white people and white supremacy and all that. It's all the same language and all the same sort of ideas that are being used to divide Americans and basically put Asians in fear of something that I personally do not think exists.
Who agrees with Vish?
No, I don't.
Raise your hands up high. Let's hear it. Why?
I mean, I agree with everything he says because they're basically weaponizing it and making us victims, but we're not victims. We have friends that are of different races. If you start to use the word hate, hate will continue. Hate is a very strong word.
So even when it's stop.
And what's crazy is that's kind of exactly what I said on the last video, but I caught a lot of hate for that, man. So it's interesting to see and hear their perspectives. And in their perspective as a group, and even you know, everybody has their own vision of how, you know, they perceive themselves and how they perceive society to look at to view them. It's interesting. Let's get back into it.
To use the word hate, hate will continue. Hate is a very strong word.
So even when it's stop Asian hate, you're still like, wait, it has Asian hate in here, and we should not even consider it as a serious thing?
It's divisive.
Well, it's referring to murders, people getting attacked in broad daylight, elders getting bashed in the head. I fear for my mother-in-law going on walks. I ask her to make sure she's not walking around when it's getting dark. So it's very real. Getting murdered for being Asian is as hateful as it gets, is it not? Why are we afraid to just say out loud, let's stop Asian hate? It is happening in astronomical numbers. Studies have shown the increase. And where did it come from? Right after the COVID blast of people saying, oh, it's the Chinese virus. There was a direct correlation to that Asian hate. It just didn't come out of thin air.
Let's talk about it.
So it really minimizes our experiences when you say it doesn't exist.
Here's a radical idea. Okay, you guys ready?
No, I'm not.
And I think the very first time, you guys let me know down below, the very first time I've heard someone refer to the COVID virus as the China virus was Trump, man. All right. And that's when we saw the spike in the Asian hate even being almost glamorized, you know what I mean? It was crazy times, man. But she's right here. She's actually on point. Let's keep it going.
When you say it doesn't exist.
Here's a radical idea. Okay, you guys ready?
No, I'm not.
So there's a lot of violence happening. A lot of it's against Asian people. A lot of it is happening in cities. Crazy idea, I know. Then maybe it's not a good idea to let criminals out of jail. Maybe it's not a good idea to defund the police, neuter the police ability to have any degree of law and order in our streets. And maybe you wouldn't have so much violence happening against so many different types of vulnerable people. I mean, this is just the truth of the situation. You know, we can talk about this correlation with COVID. Maybe that's true to an extent. It's also true
wait, so
that
maybe that's true to an extent. What do you mean?
Because it's also true that it's been climbing over the past year or two, whatever. That's also around the same time that we had all of these, you know, anti-police movements. A lot of
But it's also around the same
policy.
time that Donald Trump was calling it the China virus, right?
Well, he's not calling it anymore, and it looks like this stuff is still happening. Problem with saying stop Asian hate and us just saying stigma, whatever, is that it misses the real core of the problem. The real core of the problem is that there is lawlessness and mass violence and mass crime happening in cities. I think that the stop Asian hate movement comes from woke left-wing social movement to kind of make it into this argument of like minorities being persecuted, when I don't think that's the core of the problem. I think the core of the problem is like, it's just dangerous in our cities.
So we kind of see both sides of the spectrum here, right? One side saying it's propaganda, it's causing more harm than it is doing good, it's developing a victimhood mentality. And the other side is saying, if you look at the statistics, you can see it's a real thing and we need to address it. I think both can be true at the same time in this conversation. Along with that, the key takeaway for me, we did see the sharp increase of Asian hate during the COVID situation, you guys. And calling it a China virus may have perpetuated it into what it is we see today. So let me know what you guys think about it. What's your feedback on the conversation? Let me know down below. And if you have made it this far in the video, make sure you guys click like, subscribe to this content. And as always, man, y'all be safe out there. Peace.